I think, well, have already recorded on my bed before. Um, and I had this vision when I first started setting it up on my bed that I could be like laid up against the wall and you're far away and I can like cozy up in my blanket because it's getting kind of cold here. And that didn't really end up working because that angle like wouldn't have had like good light or whatever. And
Yeah.
it just didn't end up working out. Um, but yeah, the
You
chair it
have good
is.
light right now.
Do I?
Yeah. Is it there's
It's
just the
like
window?
it's just the window. Oh my gosh. Can you see my breath? No,
No. Is it
you can't see my
cloudy?
breath. Yeah, it's super overcast. I mean, to be fair, it is
Yeah. I
six
mean, that's
o'clock
good.
and the
That
sun's
makes the
going
light
down.
diffuse, right?
Hmm. Yeah, sunset is literally in 6 minutes. So
Whoa.
yeah,
Crazy.
crazy,
Okay.
crazy.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This is the
Welcome,
first podcast
welcome.
with our updated audio system. Do I sound better? Does Grace sound better?
I
Post in
hope
the
I sound
comments.
better.
Yeah,
I
she
had to
hopes.
trek long and far to get this equipment, guys.
Yeah,
Long
I
and
made her
far.
like go all over the place.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm quite honestly terrified of moving my mouth any farther away from this microphone in fear that it fucks up literally anything we've accomplished thus far with all of this new equipment.
Right, and then everyone will be mad
Yeah, super
and
disappointed.
and you'll be canceled. Okay, so I've been just raring to talk about this one thing. Remember, we're
What is
recording 2 episodes, so the second one can be your thing,
it?
right?
Well, okay. Yeah. Okay, what is your thing about?
Remember, I started saying it yesterday, and you were like, "You got to save that."
What was it?
It's the 3 ways that the U.S. is unequivocally better than Europe. I'm gonna cut this into a short. Yeah, and like
Fascinating.
clickbait it.
You know, that sounds really interesting. I think
It
mine
is.
should go first.
I'm dying to do this.
Oh, but I'm dying to do this.
Okay, okay. So you could do it. Go ahead and go.
Okay. So
You win.
basically, thank you. It's about time. Jeez. So basically, okay, we already know I'm doing a philosophical theology module, and each week it's like a different topic. Okay. So some examples of those other topics would be like evil. So this week we talked about justifying evil in terms of how can you have a benevolent God, an omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God when evil exists,
Yeah.
you know? So I think this is a good exercise for me to practice what I've just learned today and also for you to partake in this a little bit and see
Yeah.
see your thoughts on that. So, question, how can there exist evil if we accept that there exists God and that God is omnibenevolent?
I mean,
How can you rationalize that?
that's like requiring me to accept something that I don't accept.
Yes, you see, that's part of the exercise.
Yeah,
I don't
I
believe it
recognize
either.
that.
I don't believe it either,
I
and that's part
recognize
of the
that's
thing,
part of
right?
the exercise.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so here's okay. Well, I haven't been given much time. By the way, I'm on the spot here, dear listener.
I'm gonna
But
get my notes out.
that's what makes it interesting. Okay, so how can there be evil if we have an omniscient, omnipotent God who could, if they wanted to, just get rid of the evil? That's the question, right? Okay, this is my answer. My answer is uh, the omniscient, omnipotent God wants humanity to have a degree of free will and the necessary companion to that gift of free will is evil. That's what I've got.
Yes. So, in other words, you're saying that God is not the creator of evil. Evil is a product of our free will.
Um, yeah, yeah, or maybe, yeah, I guess, or evil just kind of exists on its own, and our free will pushes us towards it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know exactly which one creates the other.
Mm, mm, mm. Another perspective on that is that
So, in other words, this was not what you learned in class today.
no, it is. Okay. So, in other words, like, hold on.
Michael, you're an idiot.
Michael, you
Actually, this is
actually, first of all, um, therefore, it's kind of like as part of God's good, he allows for evil.
yeah, sort of like it's not like
Like
he
causing evil is different from allowing evil.
right. It's not yeah, it's like it the gift of free will requires the gift of the existence of or the existence of evil or something like that.
Cool. Cool. I thought that was fascinating.
My take?
Yeah. And just the
Uh,
whole conversation.
I mean, I don't feel like we've said much. Is that a conversation? I just said I just said my like thing that I came up with in 45 seconds.
Yeah,
You
I
should tell
think,
me what your like big discussion led to.
well, the discussion was basically just talking about a whole bunch of things that I don't necessarily believe in, from what you said off the get. Like, I don't, I don't have an image of God, period. If
Yeah.
I were to put an image to God, I guess I would suppose that he
Oh, he, huh? Notice
or
I was
she,
careful to say they.
oh, they, it, if you will. I don't, my issue, and I commented on this during the class, is that why is there this tie to benevolence? Who said that God's got to be good? But then, of course, who said God's got to be good? Like, hella doctrines, hella religions have presupposed that God must be good. So that's where that, like, goodness idea of absolute goodness comes from?
Yeah, I think that's just I mean, again, like I'm not an expert, but maybe that's just built into our kind of innate psychology. Like we're predisposed if we are predisposed to create a divinity, we are predisposed to create a benevolent
Yeah,
divinity.
benevolent. Yeah, because we want that thing that we envision to be all powerful. We
Yeah, because it
instinctively
makes
wouldn't want that to be all bad, right? And we wouldn't even want to say that it's bad because we worship that idea of it, if that makes sense.
right.
If
And
it's worthy of
think of
worship, it must have that benevolent goodness
and in a
that
more
was
primitive
designed with it.
world, um, that sort of simplistic view is maybe comforting, right? When the rest of life is hard.
That is so interesting that you said that, because as I was listening to during the seminar, I actually wrote down what provides us this comfort. Is the comfort, um and we what provides us this comfort, we rationalize this being in order so that we can feel comfortable and have trust in something.
Yeah,
you know we want to trust, we want to believe, we want to be comforted, we want to rationalize whatever such benign being has all of this power, if that makes sense. It
right.
comes out of this feeling of, like, comfort you know
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting. But what I found a little challenging is to like input that idea into the conversation because it's not really like stylistically what we were talking about. Like
Right.
we're studying what is believed and why it's believed, and can we argue rationally and reasonably that it can be believed in, not like the atheist kind of thing. Although atheism does come up every now and again because we're talking about like overall, we're talking about like can we um, provide a rational account for the existence of God? Can we reason? Can we use logic to account for an existence of God, or is it just completely bounded by faith in it? You know.
Yeah.
And what I've begun to think is that such I think God is more founded in faith than it is reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we use reason to try to justify our faith, right?
Yeah.
But that faith is ultimately like a qua rational
Well,
rationale,
I
you
feel like
know?
that's some sort of term that I don't know.
Like it's like so we have like rational, like what we give it rational beings, right? Or you know, we've said us our human nature we're rational beings, right?
Yeah, like logical actors.
Logical actors, things like that, right? Now, of course, within logic, you have different kinds of logic, right?
Sure.
You do. There are different
Yeah,
kinds
no,
of
I know
logic,
from your yeah, sure.
right? There's different kinds of philosophical, logical
Yeah.
moves, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
math
yeah, yeah.
is a particular one.
Uh-huh.
The way that numbers are allowed to work is a particular kind of logic, and that is tended. Excuse me, pardon my stuttle, stumble. um, is a particular kind of valued logic, right?
Okay.
That you practice, I would say. And I think you'd say so too. Rationally speaking, you should believe in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
math that
yeah.
you're doing.
It's founded on like
Facts.
ZFC, Zermelo Fraenkel choice axioms of set theory. Those are axioms that like modern math is built off of. It's a
Yeah.
little more details than that, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
So you
like
take that.
foundations of the logic of math.
Exactly. So those are kind of untouchable, right?
Yeah.
For the time being, it's untouchable. Just allow it to be untouchable. Okay. I'm giving math the pedestal right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've been thinking about is that us humans, apart
Mm-hmm.
from concretized maths, like what you just said, whatever that word was, the axioms or whatever,
Yeah.
we have our own like personal rational rationalization, if you will. Like
Okay.
things that we make sense to ourselves. Like we rationalize things for ourselves, right? And that can
Like
come in the
individually or as like a
individually.
community.
No, individually, right?
Okay.
So like for example, right? I'll rationalize to myself with my own rational that I'll believe is true and nothing but the truth, right? Regardless of what anybody says. Maybe I'll change it over time, but at a certain point in time, I'm going to believe that I am, it's going to sound really dark, sad. Okay. I'm sad. Nothing's going for me. Nothing works out in my favor. There's no upside, right? And I will rationalize to myself, take depression as an example, right? You rationalize to yourself why that is true.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no counter argument, no matter how rational that argument might be, that can penetrate yours.
Right.
You know, when you're consumed by it, when you're consumed
Yeah.
by it in that way, right? But that's what I mean by qual rational, because it's not really rational, because it could be competed with another rational.
Like it's something you've built in your mind to be
Yeah,
a reason for thinking something,
yeah,
even though it's not built out of the broader facts of the universe.
yes, exactly. And I think intuitively, us as people, variations of people,
Mm-hmm.
we have found that now it's shared with other people, which I'll get to in a second, but like we found that individual sense of rationale to have faith in God and to believe in God. We do not have hard fact reason, axioms, or anything of the sort to believe in God, but we have this faith, this rational, our qua rational faith that is just impenetrable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that faith allows us to do X, Y, Z, be X, Y, Z, whatever like may be, you know? So it's really hard to penetrate and like pick apart that kind of argumentation. Well, I don't actually, I think it's really easy to pick it apart, but it always has, that type of faith always has a comeback because there's this cemented center that is unbreachable, you
So this
know?
is why,
Like
like, you
talking
can
to a
pick it
really
apart,
stubborn
but you
person.
can't change the person's mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm getting a little less like, I wouldn't say this during class because like there would be like fundamental issues in like my logic and like domains and shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
But like,
but it's important to like talk about things freely first and then like root them in logic later,
yeah,
changing as necessary. So I mean discussions like this are useful even if they have to be
yeah,
edited.
yeah. um, yeah. So I just think that's so, I think that's so interesting. Yeah. Cause this module is trying to map a whole bunch of arguments about the existence of God, whether it exists or not, on this scale
Mm-hmm.
between um, reason and faith. And how compatible are those ideas in terms of justifying the existence and explaining the existence of God?
Mm-hmm.
And there's parts that say, there's arguments that say, no, those terms inherently conflict with each other. They're completely separate things. There's
Mm-hmm.
some that say it's compatible. Some people say they're really compatible. We strongly use our sense of reason, true reason, to have faith.
Mm-hmm.
Some say that it's like weak compatibility or just compatible in a sense. Now, variations on a scale, right?
Sure. Yeah.
How those trends can relate. And from what I just said, that point I just made, that would put reason and faith on two completely different ends, completely incompatible, and not just incompatible, they completely conflict or are in conflict with each other. But I don't necessarily want to say that they completely inherently conflict with one another because there is an element of reason used in our faith, you know, used in people's faith. Because I don't want to deprive faith and belief in something from any type of rationale or reason, because there is a sense of quaness, like there is like a type of, but it's not going to be able to be built to the extent that axioms and math are, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
Boom,
Did you just say boom?
boom.
Yeah. So, what are some things that were brought up in this thing? Well, let's get back to the original question.
Yeah.
Like, explain the existence of evil.
You asked me to explain this?
No, I mean, what were
Oh,
some things
oh.
brought up during that portion of the discussion?
Well, I already kind of mentioned this. So the struggle is to say there's a divine being being God. That God is immensely powerful, um, eternally knowledgeable, and um, morally good. Then the debate starts, but how can evil exist with that?
Yeah.
How can evil exist alongside such morally goodness, you
Mm-hmm.
know, along with something that is also immensely powerful, right? Because that
Right.
powerful being would have the power, could, and would be able to take away those evils, right? So, how can religion account for that, right? So, the response would, one of the responses is that there's like a cognitive limitation, that like we are not able to um encounter what the meaning of that evil is meant for.
Oh,
We
like
aren't
the
able to,
the God has some sort of plan,
yeah, and that
and
we
that
can't
plan
comprehend why
includes
that
the
has been placed.
evil, and in the end that evil allows for more good.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is like kind of fair, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a
That's kind of
take.
fair. It's a take.
That's a
It's a
take.
total take. It's a total take.
Yeah.
Um
Was my take anywhere in there?
a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was. Um
I think my take's pretty good.
yeah.
Put in the comments. Is Michael's take good? What were some other takes?
That so some people say that part of God being morally good is that he has an obligation to be morally good, right? So that's like a version of that explanation of like who God is, right? And what his powers are, right? What he can reach. So some people tie his morally goodness to his obligation to be morally good. So another take would be that, again, sort of with our limitations, is that how, who are we to judge what is obligated by God or what his obligations are, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So again, it kind of goes in line with that thing like we don't know what I think this is like along the lines of like skeptical theism or whatever. And again, also I'll credit my professor Alexei Prosishan, because this is all based off of his lecture and off of like another reading. So like this is not my own views. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm very much basing this off of my notes and stuff
yeah.
from today. And this is like an exercise. This is an exercise um, for my brain. Um, yeah. So like, how can we assume his moral obligation to us?
Right.
Who are we to say, right?
Yeah.
And then if there are, you can also say there's this guy named Law, which is really confusing in the presentation because he's like, they'll be like, Law,
Is it Jude
semicolon,
Law?
boom. No, I don't know.
It was a joke. Jude Law's an actor. You're so young. He's the young pope.
Fine.
That HBO show. He's been in like a bunch of other stuff too. He was in Captain Marvel. Okay. Anyway, keep going. This
Yeah,
is
thank
great.
you.
Yeah. Leave
So,
all this. Leave all the silence in.
yeah, I will. I will. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So there's this guy Law who says there are inscrutable evils, and by inscrutable, it's like things that might be able to be justified. We just don't know how to justify them. Like evils that have been committed that have a justification. We just don't have access to that justification. Again, this goes with the cognitive like limitations theme, kind of, you know. And then there's like gratuitous evils, which are like just plain evil, and there's no justification for them. Like evils that just exist, and there's no way you can go
Mm-hmm.
around justifying them, right?
And can humankind know the difference between the two? Or do these
I
like
don't think
exist?
so.
Do these exist in the universal? Like, could
Well, so
we?
the arguments, well, hold on. The
Yeah.
argument goes is that then, so you have that first premise, the second one, the third one being that God would not allow for gratuitous evils, just plain
Sure.
evils.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is like a logical explanation for the limitation thing, where evil does exist, there's a justification for that evil that is just unreachable by us. Now,
Yeah.
gratuitous evils just can't exist because
Got it.
God won't let them.
Yeah.
But the probability of there being gratuitous evils seems to be pretty high to us, right? Like we think of a lot of evil things, and a lot of them we can't really. Well, we could if we wanted to list a lot of evil things, we could that are just plain evil,
Yeah.
and no
Like
matter what way you
Hitler,
look about, yeah, like
or
things like that.
like the Iranian government right now.
Period.
Yeah.
That just are plain evil to us,
Mm-hmm.
that it just seems that God can't exist because there's so many things that we could find that are just plain old evil and that God could have stopped, right? Because God, if God did exist, he would stop those ones. He wouldn't allow
Right.
for them. So
Right.
therefore, God probably doesn't exist because the probability of all those things existing are pretty high, and they do, and he didn't stop them. So boom.
So boom.
So boom.
QED. There's no God.
There's
Is
no
that what you're
God,
getting at?
you know? And again, I feel like this is definitely treading on fishy waters because I have a lot of family who are religious. Michael, I'm sure you do as well. And
Yeah.
this in no way is like, am I trying to shit on, right? Like people who believe in stuff. Part of me wishes I did, you know? Um,
Yeah, same.
yeah, like I wish I had something that like provided me with a sense of comfort, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that I could turn to in a time of crisis, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I just turn to myself and that creates more crisis. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was another outlet, right? So again, none of this was supposed to, shit on religion, or to make people not believe that there is something, but just as like a philosophical, theological exercise, like how does one make that argument that God exists impenetrable?
Right.
That's the effort. That's the effort that's being held,
Yeah.
And attacking it and justifying evil in the world is one way of attacking that problem.
Right.
Now, like I'm doing a presentation in a couple weeks, and my topic is based around like eternity, but specifically, um, well,
Ooh,
it's a
this is good. This is going to make good podcasts.
yeah, yeah.
Make sure to have it like ready a little bit ahead of time so we can go over it.
No,
You
yeah,
just
this
have
presentation's in a couple weeks.
an idea of what you're going to do. Are you going to do like slides and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you could do slides on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm loving this.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Oh yeah.
loving this.
I have like I actually met with my professor in the class today. This is a funny story. So I was actually supposed to present a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't end up happening. For various reasons. One,
I mean, you don't have to say them if you don't want to.
well, no, I just have to justify my actions. He did not give a fuck, by the way. So I emailed him 2 days before. No. I met with him 2 days before the presentation to go over the reading for that week. He was like, "Oh yeah, and you're not supposed to do the presentation on the required reading, right? You're supposed to choose one of the recommended ones." I was like, "Yeah, of course I knew that. I did not know that." So I was spending a shit ton of time trying to understand the required reading
Yeah.
and like not even focusing on another reading. So I was like, "Oh well, that's great. I still don't fully understand the required reading. I'm fucked, right?" So I try to look into another reading. The other reading, super confusing, super dense. It's like 30 pages of just a whole bunch of bullshit. And for reference, the presentation I'm doing in a couple weeks, it's based on a 30-page chapter. I've had to break it down into 10-page increments just by chance, and I did the first 10 pages in like 3 to 4 hours. But yesterday I spent 3 to 4 hours summarizing the previous 2 pages I had read, and then therefore only reading a total of 4 new pages. So 6 pages total in the span of 4 hours. Because it's just like I'm trying to wrap my head around it, right?
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean,
gave myself
that's
way
how it
too little
goes
time,
sometimes. Yeah.
right? That's just life, right? Like, woe is me, woe is me.
Well, I mean, reading dense material is hard.
Is hard, exactly.
Yeah.
So I already initially gave myself like way too much time to do, or way too little time to do it. I overestimated the complexity of the reading. Completely my fault. Self sabotage, whatever, right? Um, so I said that to him. I was like, yeah, this is not getting done in any presentable manner in 48 hours. Is it okay if I change to another week? He was like, I'm hesitant to do so because this seems like a product of lack of time management. And I was like, ooh, ooh. He was like, I'm happy to meet with you. I'm happy to switch the week, but I just feel like my intuition is correct. I emailed him back and I was like, you're not completely wrong, but I did overestimate, or I underestimated the amount of time that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Met with him in person, after class, the day that I was supposed to present, he was like, "So what the fuck happened, man?" And I was like, well, I told him again the thing I just said. Gave myself too little time to prepare, obviously, and also like I had like a grant application for lacrosse club to do, and it was like hard deadline. We have no money. I needed to do it. Boom, that took my priority because
Oh,
I knew
because
I
that
could
one
switch week.
person didn't do it.
Yeah, because that one person
Call back to
actually
previous
decided
episodes.
call back to previous episodes. She's no longer treasurer. She's finally gotten back to us about that. So yeah, the rest of the committee had to do a grant application. Boom. And in this conversation with him, right, he was like, "Yeah, so how are we going to change this for next time? How are we going to make sure this doesn't happen again?" And I was like, "Well, obviously, I'm going to like start on it sooner." And he was like, "Yeah." He was like, "You know what I'd suggest?" I was like, "Oh, what would you suggest?" Mind you, I really like this guy. I think he's going to be really supportive. I need him to tell me that I'm not stupid and that I'm
Yeah.
capable, right? He goes, I think there's like a lot of like services at the new student union for like time management classes and stuff like that. I was like, damn. He really said, get your ass to a time management class. And I was like, my heart just sank. I was like, well, I'm just a complete idiot. Um,
No, that I don't know. I think that's understanding of him.
yeah, but it just did feel a little bit like a knife to a chest.
I don't know. The old school way to do it would be like, fuck you, you get a failing grade, right?
Yeah.
I
No,
think
yeah,
this
and
is
it totally
good.
came from a place of care and like I
Yeah.
completely respected and happy that he but it just was like, damn, like you said, he
I mean,
referred me to some time management classes. Shit.
yeah. Yeah, not too long ago you just would have been failed though.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
this is the way that we're improving, just being a little more caring even if it involves
yeah,
even if you
shitting on
feel
me
like you
just
got
a little bit.
stabbed. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally did. And even when I told my friends this, you did not have the same reaction as when I told my friends. When I told my friends this, they went like, "Ooh,
Yeah, but you know, like
damn."
I'm a professor or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So I mean, you know, I'll look at his point of view, and not only am I faculty, but I also think about like, and I've always tried to be empathetic and give people chances or whatever, but that's
yeah,
becoming more common now, and so like, I I don't know. Anyway, I'm happy to see that he has taken the route of being more empathetic,
yeah,
and I think it was great that like he pointed you towards some place for help instead of just giving you uh extra time. I think that was good too.
yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Because
Yeah, no, I get
because
that
it at least
100%.
addresses it a little bit, right? Like
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
instead of like, oh, like you kind of messed up and it's totally cool, like you'll just do it late. It was like you
Yeah,
kind of messed up and I'm going to call you out a little bit, but then you're going to get to do
yeah.
it late.
No, it was definitely a little bit of tough love. Um, and totally like respected. And I took it. And I took it like, so this presentation is in week 8. I'm in week 5 right now.
Mhm.
I already have an outline of the chapter, you know?
That's great.
Like I met with him today and that's what I was doing before this. And I basically, and I emailed him too. I was like, hey, can I meet with you after class today? I just want to go over what I'm going to base my presentation off because we have a little bit of flexibility on particularly what reading we choose.
Mhm.
Along like that goes with the topic of the week, and him with um, an outline of what I had gotten from the reading. And I was like, this is not a draft of a presentation. This is a draft of what I've extracted as information um, that I've seemed to be important and also to make sure I've understood it. That was my main thing. I was like,
Yeah.
I've read all this, I've spent a lot of time, I've rephrased it, I've broken it up, simplified for myself. But what if I did all of that for nothing? If I missed a key point, or I'm totally in the wrong boat? He verified that I was like down the right track. I've understood the argument, but now what's next is that what I've done thus far is summarized it for myself, right? But this presentation can't be summarizing it. This
Mhm.
presentation will be teaching it. And I'm not going to teach somebody about this by taking them down how I've learned about it. I'm just going to teach them the material that I've learned about it, if that makes sense. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? You know? Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, so, no, no, no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, and then I figured out this. Oh, this is what he was saying. Boom. No, I'm just going to be like, this is what he's saying. This is how he said it. These are the
Yeah.
moves. This is what he didn't do because of X, Y, Z. This is how, and this is why this makes sense. This is why it could also
Right.
not make sense, like that kind of thing. And what are the
Yeah.
background knowledge that like the author is relying upon, and what is the context he is assuming prior to the argument, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, but it overall was good, super helpful, pointed me in the right direction, and I'm very thankful. And I think I'm gonna do really good
Yeah,
because
that's
this
great.
is due in like what, like 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. I'm already
Yeah,
started.
and you're going to do a
I
practice on the podcast, which, to be honest, is
exactly.
like a cheat code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I told him today when I walked in, I was like, so I've started, because his big thing was that the last time we met, he was like, so you're gonna start this tomorrow, and I did. I printed out the article the next day,
Good.
and I verified with him that I could choose it. And he was like, boom, happy to hear you've started it. And I was like, I've made progress. And he was like, good job. Keep going. Like, don't stop now. Said you're only step one. You got a whole bunch of other steps
Yeah.
to go to, you know?
Right. You were
So
like
yeah, that was
fishing
great.
for more good feedback than you really deserved.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, okay. He was like, you still need to address the XYZ. And I was like, I know, but this makes sense, right? He was like, I get it. You understand the material. That's what I needed to hear. That's what I needed to hear because that's what I was really
Yeah,
nervous about. So
that's great. I
anyway,
feel like you've come a long way in the past couple of years. You seem like more sure of yourself and devoted to
mm-hmm.
the school process this year.
Really,
Mm-hmm. This is me
you
from
know,
from an
yeah.
outside perspective.
Well, thank you, Michael. I think that's what my mom has said. We'll wrap it up. That's what my I was on the phone with my mom the other day and I was really struggling. And she was like, Grace, need I remind you, last week you were like super excited about your classes and now you're like super psyching yourself out. But like you've made it this far, you just got to keep making it, you know? Like
Yeah,
there's no other way but up.
yeah.
And
You're almost home free.
I'm almost home free and there's no point. My aunt was like, I was telling her about school and everything. And I was like, oh, I wish I had the opportunity to drop out. She was like, why do you say that? She's like, why do you say that, huh? She's like, are you on the risk of dropping out? She's like, are you failing classes? How are you doing? I was like, no, I'm not failing classes. I just wish that was an option for me. My mom makes that not an option for me. There's no way my mom will ever allow me to unenroll from university. It's kind of just that conflict. Not because I'm not doing well. I've only accelerated. So this year I should be doing better than last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I wish I had the option to just not do it at all, and I don't have that option. So I just got to keep going with it. So,
Yeah,
got to do better than last year.
yeah.
But yeah, seems like a good
Okay.
place to stop.
Yeah, I think so. And then we'll pick up with my fun story. I gotta go to the bathroom. Do you want to do an outro?
Yeah, what's our outro?
I don't know. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm going to the bathroom.